At this, Grendel promised debts to be forgiven.
If Caesar had stayed around, we'd all be doing charity work.
Right. We run numbers, not revolutions.
Exactly. The man's talking debt forgiveness, new roads, standardized coinage.
And they think we want to stop that with the rich and well paid.
We didn't take out Julius Caesar.
A man's found some hard black iron in his soul. Hobby surprises me.
I had hoped to provoke some kind of aggression, sure, but to try and kill a tribune!
In the forum.
Sword guards, Bob Bank, and the Senate have formally declared that Gaius Julius Caesar is an enemy of Rome. They have declared in effect that all have known also a criminal. People's Tribune Mark Act today, and 50 men of the 13th were assaulted by 1,000 head of Pompeian scum, assaulted on the steps of the Southern House. And I stand at a fork in the road. I can abide the law and surrender my arms to the Senate, or I can go alone with my sword in my hand and run those maniacs to Octavian and rock.
In 49 BCE, Julius Caesar seized Rome not just as a conqueror, but as a disruptor of its deepest power. The bankers who ruled through staggering usury and debts that shackled ordinary citizens. Historians say his downfall was ambition, but the evidence, from the Lex Julia wiping 25% off creditors' claims, to the land colonies and portrait coins of 46 to 44 BCE, shows Caesar rewrote Rome's economy and threatened fortunes from Brutus to the publicani.
Senators, the war is over. Many of you here today fought against me. Many of you wished me dead. Many of you perhaps still do. But I hold no grudges and seek no revenge. I demand only this, that you join with me in building a new Rome, a Rome that offers justice, peace, and land to all its citizens, not just the privileged few. Support me in this task, and old divisions will be forgotten. Oppose me, and Rome will not forgive you a second time.
When Rome's richest lost millions of sesterces overnight, the story became dangerous to tell. What if Caesar died not because he wanted a crown, but because he challenged the system itself? And why is this story barely whispered in the history books? In 48 BCE, Rome's courts filled with anxious creditors and desperate debtors, each side staring down the new legal machinery set in motion by Julius Caesar's Lex Julia de Pecuniis Mutuis. The law's process began with a simple public act. The debtor stood before the praetor and swore the ius jurandum boni copia, an oath of insolvency, declaring under penalty of perjury that repayment was impossible. This was no empty gesture. The Tabula Heracliensis, a surviving bronze fragment from central Italy, records the formula and the seriousness of the moment. False swearing brought criminal charges, while a true oath unlocked the law's next phase. Once the oath was accepted, the praetor appointed a valuer, or arbiter, to assess the debtor's property. Here, the rules cut sharply against the creditor's interests. All assets were to be valued at their pre-war prices, not the collapsed wartime rates that would have favored buyers. Gaius, in his later summary, describes how the debtor could avoid imprisonment or personal ruin by turning over property, which the arbiter would then assign to creditors for sale or distribution. But there was a further blow. Interest already paid on the loan, sometimes years of it, had to be subtracted from the principal, slashing the amount a creditor could claim. According to calculations preserved in Cassius Dio's account, this formula routinely wiped out about 1/4 of the original debt, a loss so consistent that later commentators fixed the figure at 25%. Enforcement fell to men like Gaius Trebonius, Praetor Urbanus, who supervised the appointment of arbiters and kept the process moving even as resistance mounted. Not all magistrates cooperated. Marcus Caelius Rufus, Praetor Peregrinus, wielded his veto to block valuations he deemed unfair, threatening to trigger mass bankruptcy auctions, venditio bonorum, that would have ruined many outright. This legal duel between Trebonius and Caelius became notorious, with each man accused of bias and political manipulation. The system itself was vulnerable. Creditors accused valuers of favoritism. Debtors feared being forced into infamia if the process failed, and the courts buzzed with rumors of backroom deals. Yet, for all its flaws, the law's machinery delivered a quantifiable outcome. Creditors, especially the elite, saw their claims cut by a quarter, with no hope of personal retribution once the oath and valuation were complete. The praetorial veto, the appointment of arbiters, and the oath of insolvency together formed a legal engine that forced Rome's financial elite to absorb losses they had never imagined. Behind each courtroom drama lay the reality. Millions of sesterces vanished from the ledgers of Rome's most powerful men, fueling a resentment that would soon spill beyond the courts and into the streets. Veteran settlements reshaped the landscape of Roman power as Caesar began distributing land to his soldiers across Italy and the provinces between 46 and 45 BCE. Stone inscriptions, epitaphs, and boundary markers still bear the names of colonies like Colonia Julia Carthago and Narbo Martius, their dates carved in Latin, anchoring these settlements to Caesar's direct authority. Each new colony meant the transfer of estates from old senatorial families to thousands of veterans, a process visible in the archaeological record and confirmed by texts such as Plutarch and Suetonius. The effect rippled through rural markets. Property once guarded by Rome's elite now passed to men loyal to Caesar, eroding the landed class's grip on revenue and status. The stones themselves, found from Gaul to North Africa, stand as evidence of a deliberate redistribution, no mere reward for service, but a calculated shift in the balance of economic power. Alongside land, Caesar turned to coinage as a tool of persuasion and control. From 49 to 44 BCE, his portrait began to appear on silver denarii and gold aurae, a break with centuries of Roman tradition. The 44 BCE denarius, stamped with the legend Dies te perpetuo, shows Caesar crowned with laurel, his name in bold, Caesar. These coins, catalogued in Crawford's monumental reference work, flooded the markets, reaching even the farthest provinces. Their message was unmistakable. Caesar's image, not the Senate's, now guaranteed the value of Rome's money. The act was more than vanity. It was a declaration that the state, under his hand, could create and legitimize wealth without the mediation of private bankers or senatorial committees. Every transaction, from grain sales in the Forum to tax payments in Asia, became a silent endorsement of his rule. The propaganda extended beyond metal. Inscriptions at colonial sites proclaim the foundation of new towns by Caesar's order, sometimes listing the precise year, 46 or 45 BCE, and the number of veterans settled. These texts, preserved in the Corpus Inscriptionum Latinarum, record not only the redistribution of land, but the public spectacle of new beginnings, often celebrated with games, feasts, and the striking of commemorative coins. The colonies themselves, with their grid layouts and standardized civic buildings, served as living billboards for Caesar's vision of a reordered society. For the Senate and Rome's financial elite, these changes were more than symbolic. Each land grant and coin bore a message. The old order, built on inherited estates and private credit, was being challenged by a regime that claimed the right to define both property and money. The proliferation of coins with Caesar's likeness and the public reading of colony charters sent a warning across the Republic. Economic power was shifting, and the traditional guardians of wealth and influence were losing ground. By the time the denarius with Dict Perpetuo entered circulation in early 44 BCE, the battle lines were drawn not just in the Forum or the Senate, but in every marketplace and farmstead touched by Caesar's reforms. Brutus's 48% loan to Salamis was no outlier. It exemplified the risks confronting Rome's creditor class as Caesar's reforms took hold. Cicero, in letters to Atticus, counted millions of sesterces evaporating from the ledgers of the publicani, while Argentarii watched their networks unravel. Tax farm contracts in Asia alone, once valued at astronomical sums, became nearly worthless overnight as Caesar's measures forced repayments to be recalculated or written off. The law slashed what creditors could claim. Interest already paid had to be deducted from principal, with property valued at old pre-war prices. For Brutus and his circle, these rules meant the loss of entire fortunes built on high-yield lending. Cicero warned, "The landed class faces ruin," as the Senate's most influential financiers, Brutus, Cassius, Rabirius Posthumus, found their power and liquidity shrinking.
Caesar's ambition threatens the Republic, and his removal is necessary for Rome's freedom. As he was valiant, I honor him, but as he was ambitious, he must go. It is not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more.
In the shadows, more than 60 senators and their financial backers tallied their losses, fueling a resentment that would soon turn deadly. No ancient source provides a confession or uncovered document linking Caesar's murder directly to a plot by bankers, yet the financial consequences of his reforms linger in every account. The Ides of March, 44 BCE, remains a day of tangled motives. Appian and Suetonius record political fears and personal rivalries, but also note the economic grievances simmering beneath the surface. Some historians, like Goldsworthy and Temin, argue the evidence points toward a coalition of senators, tax farmers, and creditors whose fortunes shrank as Caesar's laws bit deeper. Others see the murder as a defense of Republican tradition, not balance sheets. The truth is lost in the gaps. No surviving letter spells out a banker's conspiracy, and the names of the assassins include both ruined creditors and men untouched by debt. Speculation, clearly marked, invites a thought experiment. If Caesar's debt relief and land redistribution had continued, could Rome have seen an early form of debt jubilee? Or would elite backlash have found another outlet? Modern analogies tempt, but must be handled with care. The story of Caesar's fall resists simple answers, leaving open the possibility that the war against usury was fought not just in law courts, but in the shadows of history, where motive and myth still collide. In the final years of his life, Julius Caesar enacted reforms that forced creditors to accept an average 25% loss, as documented in the Lex Julia de Pecuniis Mutuis of 48 to 47 BCE and confirmed by Cicero's letters and the Tabula Heracliensis. Land was redistributed to veterans, and new coins bearing Caesar's image appeared across Rome. These changes shifted wealth and power away from entrenched financial elites, including figures like Brutus, whose 48% interest loan in Salamis is attested by Cicero. Yet despite the economic impact and the financial exposure of many conspirators, no primary document directly links Caesar's assassination on March 15, 44 BCE, to a coordinated effort by bankers. Instead, the evidence reveals a collision of law, money, and ambition that left Rome forever changed. The question of whether economic reform or political rivalry was the decisive cause remains open. What is clear? When one man challenged the rules that protected wealth, the consequences rippled through history and still fuel debate among scholars today.
On March 15th, 44 BCE, known as the Ides of March, 40 Roman senators conspired against Julius Caesar. Caesar loved Brutus. Betrayal is heartbreaking. Caesar walked into an ambush by the Senate. The senators stabbed Caesar 23 times. Brutus instantly regrets his betrayal of his mentor and friend. He loved Caesar. Not only the pain, but confusion on his actions. as Caesar passes to the afterlife. Mark Antony was delayed to prevent his mentor from walking into an ambush. He is in shock and mourning of his leader. To conspire is treachery, betrayal is unloyal. Just over a year, Caesar is dead, and Octavius accepts the inheritance and travels to Rome to claim his rights.
What an auspicious day. Many gave their lives that we might stand here once again, united in the government of a lawful republic. And how fitting that we welcome this new beginning by swearing in the youngest consul in the history of Rome, Gaius Octavian Caesar. Esteemed senators, I take this first moment before you not to glorify myself, but to honor my father. In his honor, I declare that my term as consul shall usher in a new era. An era of moral virtue, of dignity. The debauchery and chaos we have had to endure will now end. Rome shall be again as she once was, a proud republic of virtuous women and honest men. I speak to you now, not as a soldier or citizen, but as a grieving son, as my first act in this reborn republic. And in honor of my father, I propose a motion to declare Brutus and Cassius murderers and enemies of the state. My dear lord, this is what we agreed. It is not. Nevertheless, here we are.
Brutus and Cassius still have many friends. You will split the chamber, the unity of the Republic.
Step away from my chair. My father died on this floor. Rank, stabbed 27 times, butchered by men he called his friends. Who will tell me that is not murder? Who will tell my legions, who love Caesar as I do, that that is not murder? Who will speak against the motion? Then outmaneuvered by a child.
Augustus prepares for war against Brutus and Cassius, as the men prepare for an all-out war for Julius Caesar. Rome's future is bright. With Octavian at the helm, he will lead for 40-plus years.